My name is Paul Posma. Sorry, I should ask, can you all see the screen correctly? Oh, maybe someone take yourself off mute. Yes, you can see it. Okay.
I can see
Hopefully you can see my beautiful photo on screen and Lou's photo as well. My name is Paul Posman. I'm the Managing Director for NAPA here in Australia. And I also happen to be a NAPA parent, having brought my son Max to NAPA for close to 10 years now. And joining us tonight and doing the majority of the grunt work tonight is Louise Conn, who is our Director of Client Services. You can see her on screen there. She's also across all of NAPA Australia, so the 3 clinics that we have in Australia, including Brisbane, and is also a NAPA parent, having taken her daughter, Georgia, to NAPA for closer to 13 years.
yeah, over 13 years now.
Over 13 years, yes. So there you go. We've been in the NAPA family for a long, long time. So yeah, as you'll soon see that NAPA very much prides itself on utilising NAPA parents as part of the team, particularly here in Australia and across the world, actually. So yes. All right, so we're going to give you some insight and into not just NAPA Brisbane, but NAPA as a whole tonight. I'm going to take you through the first part of the presentation tonight, which will take you through a few of the photos of the location. We haven't got our hands on the location just yet, so we haven't gotten in there to start making some changes to what the photos you will see on the screen will be today, but rest assured you'll be able to get a feel for how beautifully open and big and spacious the space actually is. So something very, very much to look forward to. I should say, sorry, as we go through the evening, you might have questions that pop into your mind that you want to ask either myself or Lou about NAPA, about our therapists, about the intensive model, about anything really. If you don't want to forget that question, you can pop it into the chat function. You'll see a little chat speech bubble somewhere on your screen. You can pop your questions in there. Otherwise, you can just wait to write it down or just keep it in your mind, and we'll get to as many questions as we possibly can towards the end of the presentation once we've done the presentation. 1 sec, I've just got to let some people in. I will try. Okay. Okay, so here is the front entry of the new NAPA clinic in Brisbane. The clinic will be located in a suburb called Shayla Park. A little bit more information here is it's 1 to 31 Commercial Drive, Shayla Park. We will be opening on August 28th of this year. There is lots of free parking at this location, so you will not, it's going to have the best parking situation of any of our NAPA clinics in 61 very, very convenient spots located right in front of the door. So very, very convenient there. It's directly just off, it's literally a stone's throw from the freeway that is between Brisbane and Goldie. 5 minutes from one of Brisbane's biggest special needs schools, Bentley. Located opposite Hyperdome Shopping Centre, so it'll be perfect for those of you who want to get something on the way or after, or if you've got a longer gap in your therapy, you can pop over to the shopping centre over there and have a meal or get some things. It's about a 15-20 minute drive to Brisbane CBD, about a 30-minute drive to Gold Coast, and is 20 minutes from the Gold Coast theme park. So super, super close if you want to make that into a weekend for those of you who are planning on having therapy holidays at our NAPA Brisbane clinic. It's 1,250 square metres of space, which for those of you who may not think in those spaces, it's about the size of the current Sydney clinic that we've currently got now. So we're starting big, and it took a while for us to grow into that space, but we've been very, very fortunate to find a really, really great landlord up in Brisbane who is very much looking after us, and we've been able to take the biggest space that we want to eventually grow into from the very, very get-go. So that means at the start we're going to be able to do lots of stuff, have lots of space to spread out and have massive obstacle courses and massive play gyms and stuff for your kids to play with. When we are opening in August of this year, we are opening with an initial team of 6 physios. 4, possibly 5 occupational therapists. We've got 4 locked in at the moment, and 2 speech therapists as well. So a very, very decent sized clinic, and already that will put us as being one of the biggest paediatric clinics in the Brisbane area. And we've obviously got, if any of you know how Sydney and Melbourne have gone, obviously got very big plans to sort of grow and add to that as we settle in as well. So taking you through some of the pictures of what you can expect. There's a lift, so we're on level 1 of this location there. So you can see that picture there. There's 2 levels. We're on the 2nd level there. We have a lift that takes you up there. There's also stairs for those who can utilize the stairs. But there's a lift there that is solely for us, so no one else utilizes that lift. Again, remember that all the pictures that you'll see, lots of furniture in some of these spaces, will all obviously be gone. But there's our reception area. There's some more photos here of some of the space there. So again, imagine all this furniture gone. This is going to be our open gym area. But what you can see in the background there is beautiful, big, bright windows and lots of natural light flooding into the space, which is going to make it a very, very incredible therapy space for you and your kids. Here is the all-important parents lounge. So it's very, very big. It's going to be the biggest parents lounge of all of our NAPA clinics. So that's super, super exciting. I don't know if the red chairs will still be there. They may be gone by then, but we'll see. That's the photo from above. You can see there, I put that photo in there so you could see that the parking is literally right in front of the door. So it's all there, all directly in front. You just have to walk in on grade. That's the freeway that I told you about. So literally, I said it was a stone's throw from the freeway. It literally is. You just got to get off the freeway and do a loop and go into the building there. And that's I think in this literally across the road there. I don't know if can you see my mouse? Yes, you can. That's like a bit of a, it's called, I think, the Hyperdome Homemakers Centre. And then just over in this area over here is the Hyperdome Shopping Centre. So probably not walking distance. You probably have to just jump in the car to pop over there. But there's a Bunnings here. There's a couple of fast food outlets. There's like a drive-through, Red Rooster, Macca's, all that sort of stuff. So everything's very, very conveniently located just near us. And as I said, that's the freeway there. And on the next slide here, if I can read it properly, it does say how far, well, there's the Hyperdome Shopping Centre, as I mentioned before, and it's a big shopping centre. This has got the freeway, and it mentions how far the drive is to Goldie and to Brisbane. So that's all the photos of the location and the precinct. We will get our hands on there and get in there and start making some changes and NAPA-izing it over the coming months, getting it ready for the August opening. I'm now going to pass over to Lou, who's going to take you more through what NAPA is all about, the types of services you can expect, how we go about doing our intensive and weekly services at NAPA, and then talk you through some registration bits and pieces as well towards the end. As I said, if there's Lou's going to, some of Lou's screens have got a bit of information on them. So if you think of questions during Lou's presentation, either pop them into the chat or write them down on a piece of paper, and we'll get to as many of those as we can towards the end of this presentation. Okay, so without any further ado, I'm going to pass over to Lou.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lou Conn, and as Paul introduced me, I'm the Client Director for Australia at NAPA. And my journey, as he said, is I'm also a NAPA parent, and my journey started with NAPA many, many years ago with my now 15-year-old daughter who has quite severe cerebral palsy. So we arrived over in Los Angeles and realised really what we had seen prior to that point in terms of what intensive therapy, early intervention looked like, really therapy in general, what we were looking for our daughter wasn't really existing in other places. So long story short, it is now in Australia, and I'm really proud to be part of that journey to bring the clinic from Los Angeles over here to Australia, and then it has just blossomed ever since. Definitely filling a massive void and need. So what we're going to talk through tonight, some of you I can see are old hands with NAPA and are going to be a really brilliant base to be able to introduce a whole lot of new families too. And then I really welcome all the new families here and faces. We're really excited to be reaching the Brisbane market and the Queensland market. We've had many, many, many families travel ridiculous amounts of kilometres to come and see us down in Sydney and now in Melbourne. And so we're delighted to be able to come a little bit closer to you after all these years. We really appreciate the support that we've had from Queensland families, and you've been very important to our growth, and we're hoping that we can help you now in Brisbane and reach all the families that have not been able to cross the border, particularly over the last couple of years with COVID, which has made things very difficult, we understand. So NAPA, who and what is NAPA Centre? The NAPA itself stands for the Neurological and Physical Habilitation Centre. And one of the key words in that point is habilitation. We're all about what kids can do and how far they can go. So that's a really key part about what we do. Its centre itself started a long time ago in Los Angeles. And what I've found, and we've continued to try and ensure is in every clinic, is this sort of what I call a NAPA approach, a real NAPA family approach, where we look at the children very much as individuals. We look at what we can do from a really practical perspective, from the here and now of where they're at, as well as the long-term goal planning. The most important thing, I think, is that we see your child first. And I think that that, for me, is a really important piece of this puzzle from a parent's perspective, is that I want my child to be known as who they are, what their DNA is, who their soul is, before their diagnosis. We see every eye diagnosis sort of under the sun, very rare conditions, through to mild presentations and the I really don't know what's going on presentation. So diagnoses are wonderful, helpful as a starting point, but they don't tell us anything about your child. So that's very much part of our deep dive DNA, is understanding your child and how they tick. The NAPA kind of model or ethos is to kind of aim high and to really not put any limits on what may be possible. We don't know how far our kids can go, and particularly those with very rare conditions. So we really just want to be able to kind of meet them at their point and just give them the tools and the puzzle pieces to see how far they fly. We work really closely with parents and therapists and medical professionals in terms of looking at goals, sensible goals that we can sort of drill down on a 3-week basis, particularly for our intensives, and then longer term visions. So they're all kind of how we break our goals down a little bit. But parents are really vital to this. We need to understand what your child's like at home, what is going to help you, help them, as well as help them help themselves. The upside of NAPA is we have all our disciplines in one place. And I guess that is a rarity in therapy in general, particularly pediatric therapy, is we tend to have your medical space, your OTs, your speechies and your physios, but they may be working independently of each other. And a lot of the communication is done over a phone call or a report. From a parent's perspective, that can sometimes extend the time that we really don't have when we're working with children, particularly in that early intervention space. So we have all these disciplines under one roof. The advantage of that is they literally can talk to each other in the hallway. The handover's quick, the notes are centralised, and a lot of that information can be imparted very, very quickly, so that the team is really focused very much on your child and where they're at today, the last hour, that sort of space. So you've really got that fantastic continuity of information. So saying better communication and processes, and very much a teamwork approach, of which you as the parent is a really important and valued member of that team. NAPA itself is really open to new ideas. We go heavily into the latest research and really are very open to the best therapeutic techniques there are out there. And we really make sure that we investigate all of those techniques. But once we're fairly convinced, and that's done on a global scale with all the teams across America and soon to be London, and all across Australia, to really look at the different techniques and options that are out there and seeing what is going to be the best outcome for our children. And then we bring them in-house, and then there's a vast amount of training and mentoring to bring anything in-house, but it is very much done with a great deal of research and information behind it. And then one of the other really magical parts of NAPA is being part of the NAPA family, or being part of the community of NAPA parents who really understand the journey of parenting in a disability space. Very few of us, I think, had a great deal of exposure to parenting before having our kids with disabilities and delays. It's a bit of a shock to the system. And it's certainly a space where you need your community to surround you and look after you, and you to be able to lean into, because it's a challenging and long journey. So being part of the NAPA family, which will not only be Brisbane, but you will be able to link into Sydney, Melbourne, and internationally, to families who will really understand the journey for you. So who are NAPA? We've said what our magic name is, but basically, essentially, we're paediatric therapy and rehab specialists. We work with children with any sort of delays and any disabilities, but we do lean into that physical disability and neurological delay space. It started in Los Angeles back in 2009. It came across as pop-up sessions into Singapore and then into Sydney. And then there was definitely enough demand from Australian parents to say, we need this kind of intensive programs in Australia. It just didn't really exist in any format prior to this. So in 2015, we opened in Sydney, followed on by Melbourne in 2021, and we're super excited, as I said, to be opening in August in Brisbane. Globally, we link into a much, much bigger network, which means that when you are part of the NAPA family, you really are part of the NAPA Brains Trust. And that means that with our clinics in Los Angeles, Boston, Austin, Denver, Chicago, and soon to be in London, not only are you linking into a really big network, but our therapists are linking into a massive mentor network where they can, particularly with children with rare diagnosis, can lean across to their team globally in terms of what's happening in different parts of the world, different techniques that they've used, different exercises they've used. So that mentoring is the thing that really helps, particularly with children with rare conditions and diseases that really there's not a lot of information out there. So that ability to be able to share information is really crucial. And then we bring some of the top therapists across Australia and the therapies all in under one roof. We're really proud of, say, the mentoring training program that we have for our therapists. They're energetic, they're very, very skilled, and nobody really goes near one of our beautiful kids until they've been through at least a 12-week onboarding program, and then at least a 12 to 24 months growth program after that point in time. And they could be coming to us with 10 years experience prior to that point, but we still have a really important NAPA training ethos about what goes on, because we really understand how precious our little kids are and how important it is that the people working with them really know what they're doing. As Paul said, NAPA is kind of unique in that it was started by family in Los Angeles who was getting so frustrated with the journey of very inconsistent care and communication between teams. Part of that then, the growth has been a really important thing, is that parents are very much involved in the management of NAPA so that we can understand the delivery and we can understand the process that you guys are going through and ensure that the journey on the ground is going to meet what you need. So that really careful expectation management and really making sure that your journey from the therapy floor to home and everywhere in between is well looked after. The Brisbane clinic will be no different. We've got a fabulous clinic manager, Daniel, who'll be part of the team. He and his son have been part of the NAPA world for a long time, having moved up from Melbourne, and we're really, really excited to have him as part of the team. His son has been a little NAPA superstar for a number of years, but again, a complex disability and a family who really does understand the disability journey. As I said, parents and carers and grandparents and anyone that is really part of that ripple effect around a child are so important to us, because we understand that if we don't support you and make sure that the journey for you is as well balanced and as smooth as possible, then we're not going to be able to get the best for your child either. Brisbane will be offering all the services that NAPA is really renowned for. So our intensive therapy programs are our kind of big piece of what we're really known for globally. But we also offer weekly therapy programs for children. They may be the only way that we see your kids. You can do weekly and intensive programs with us, or you may only do an intensive program with us, depending on where you live and geographically kind of getting to us. The actual sort of top line disciplines will be physiotherapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy. So we really do sit in that kind of much more physical space. And then alongside that, we've got our kind of programs that you will have seen pictures of, where kids wearing the neuro suit, the sensory integration and astronaut programs, unique behavioural and calming programs like the listening program, which is working kind of all on the inner ear and balance. An amazing technique called DMI, which is sort of a next step up from CME, which is dynamic movement intervention. And that is a really big hybrid almost between physio and OT, where we look at gross motor skills, but from a reflex kind of perspective, and looking at a lot of core strength. Our spider cage, which is a very funny name for the metal cage that you will suddenly see in some photos, otherwise known as an Oogle or a universe exercise unit, but we call it the spider cage, and purely because quite often there's big bungee cords that will be connecting the kids at different levels and strengths, and they look like little funky spiders. But that's a really fun space for the kids to go there, and it is somewhere that sometimes the kids who graduate from DMI will go into the spider cage, because it allows the therapist to be able to do a lot of things with more than two hands, essentially. We look at gait training, treadmill training, looking at walk, looking at foot strike. We look at the whole way that kids are balanced. We use things like the NMES or tasers, which is like a little e-stim sort of system, which helps stimulate the kids' muscles at the right time. And it's been a really fantastic mix in with DMI and on the spider cage. So this is where we can also mix a lot of our programs in as one and make them quite unique to your child. We use Galileo vibration plates, which are sort of the Rolls Royce of the vibration therapy space. And again, it can mix in, been working with the OTs, the physios, the speechies might use it. So there's lots of different ways a lot of these techniques are integrated into cross-discipline programming. Swallowing and feeding therapy is a really interesting space, because there aren't many people that really do it, and particularly for children with physical disabilities. It's a space that we're really proud of what we can do. And we there's quite a few different techniques and stuff that we work with to improve kids' feeding and swallowing. We may work quite closely with a hospital in that process, but that's certainly something that we can look at in terms of really helping with nutrition and growth, as well as just actually, safe feeding. Speech therapy with different techniques, prompt, LAMP and Hanen. Vital Stim, which is a technology that's not used vastly across Australia, but hugely across in the States, and particularly for rehabilitation in terms of a good swallow. SOS feeding, which is amazing for kind of that sensory feeding. We're swallowing safe, but kids are really limited in their diet or very, very picky eaters. AAC technology is a huge space for us as well, particularly with kids with physical disabilities, where motor planning is actually the thing that's letting their communication down. They've got great thoughts, but no way of actually getting it out. So we can work with eye gaze, we work with LAMP products, we work with anything from an iPod or iPad through to very low-tech systems as well. We can work closely with schools in that space as well, which is a really important space for continuity of care, which is something I'll get to a bit later. And then a lot of the assistive technology, equipment, trials and scripting. And one of the good things about the intensive program is quite often is we can get equipment in, get it quickly to your child, trial it, and then write the reports within that sort of 3-week bucket. So particularly if you're coming from outside of Brisbane and you're travelling in and you don't have a lot of therapists that'll go out to you, or particularly equipment suppliers, that's something that we can pre-plan and get pretty organised within that 3-week programs. And then the good old report writing, which of course we all need for NDIS fun. So we can write the different reports for that. So the teams themselves, they are very carefully trained physios, OTs and speeches. They are really passionate to be in this space. You can't be a paediatric therapist without really wanting and loving being a paediatric therapist. This is certainly not a job for any of them that you can go into lightly. So they are very much a sort of a calling for most of our team to be in the NAPA bracket. And really, for a lot of them, being selected to be part of the NAPA team is kind of the gold standard of where they want for their career as well. So we do have a fantastic depth to our teams as well. The teams themselves are good fun. They have to be. They're working with kids. They know that they've got to get these little people who don't necessarily want to do the exercises through the system. So they're fun. They're intuitive to kids. They love to play. They love to laugh. They love to sing. And that's a really key part of that motivation piece for the kids, and really getting down to the kids' level, understanding what their currency is and working with them to achieve new things. NAPA's difference, I guess, is looking at all of those disciplines from a neurological perspective. And that's probably where it's a little bit different from going to a traditional physio. That a lot of our information that even goes through our speech therapists and our physiotherapists comes from a really sensory base. With many of our children, obviously the puzzle pieces have kind of fallen apart a little bit, be that in the birth process or through the genetics or through injury. And so we need to understand their whole kind of neurological and sensory systems to make sure that we've got their base right. So that sometimes can look like we take them a little bit backwards to move them forwards again, but really what the team are doing is a huge amount of understanding how that child's body and neural pathways are working. So that's a really important kind of core space of where we come from. And then from there, we go up and out through all the gross motor and fine motor skills. Core work, stamina, strength, positioning, balance, proprioception, and just overall body perception is a really important thing that we work on, because without any of that in place, it is very, very difficult for the children to be able to do the simple tasks like standing or sitting or transferring, or even before they've even taken a step or said a word. So a lot of that comes into play in terms of any base of any program that goes on with the kids. Keep flipping. Where's the next page? You up there, Paul? Yep. So this is one of the big things that we do, is this whole word intensives, which is about 70% of what we do. The other 30% would be our weekly clients that come in, and that's sometimes why we have different wait lists, because of the way that our schedule is worked through in across the board, across all of our team. But the magic word intensive is, it's a really normal way for people to learn things. All of us learn intensively. Going to school is a form of intensive learning. Going to a tennis camp is a form of getting better at tennis. If you want to get better at learning French, you do a language immersion or you go to France. Conferences, any of these sort of online learning, quite often they are intensive learning. So it's not the huge jump for therapy. It's actually been there for a long, long time. It's just a new buzzword in Australia, I would suspect. And it's certainly a new buzzword in the NDIS. But the intensive model of therapy is really pretty globally established. It's been around for decades, and it is a really specialised space to make changes for the human body. And it's particularly effective, obviously, for children who are also growing and learning. It's based on that whole neuroplasticity. But the interesting thing with neuroplasticity is that there are certain points in time in humans' lives where they're taking on a lot more, but that doesn't ever really stop. And we've always got the capacity to continue to learn and change. So that's kind of where intensives are really interesting, but they're also really normalized. For us, we put a typical program of once a week or once a fortnight, and we package it down into a 3-week block. Each of those 3-week blocks are going to look very different from the neighbouring child doing their 3-week block. They're going to be very individually planned and very much based on where your child is at the moment and the next hurdle that we need them to get across. Children of all conditions can benefit from this, and that can be, and we just modify around a diagnosis as well as needed. So we can work closely with medical teams in that space, but it's certainly, there's very little that would stop us being able to work with a child, be that for comfort or for working towards a huge amount of independence. Ideally, that's where we are working for, is we're looking for what independent skills can we give this child. And that might be from the simple thing of scratching their nose through to catching the bus by themselves. Ideally, what we'll be able to do in that 3-week program is really drill down on a couple of goals. And ideally, we will be looking at gaining strength, improving balance, improving their motor planning, understanding their own self-body and awareness, hopefully improving their communication skills, even if speech is not an area that we need to worry about. Quite often, even just the fitness level and the breathing and stuff will improve communication outcomes. Really want to see that the kids understand what they're capable of. They live in a world where their body doesn't necessarily do what it wants it to do, and we need them to understand how capable they really, really are. In terms of who we see, well, it's very, very broad. Here's a very quick list of some of the conditions that we will see. But really that list grows almost every day as we get different applications in from different families. And they say, look, there's 10 kids in the world with this. And the nice thing is that we can quite often potentially link in with one of the other children in the world who might be going to NAPA, say in the US, but also that we can understand where they're at without the diagnosis and go, right, well, this is a typical journey of a very parallel type condition. So that's a way that we can kind of work around conditions as well, or conditions that mirror each other but have different names. One of the key things, and particularly as a lot of you may have established relationships with your local therapists, and we really encourage you to keep that, particularly if you don't live in Brisbane, but continuity of care is really key to us. Intensives themselves don't work in isolation. They are absolutely part of a cog in the wheel of all the things that we need to do for our kids from a medical perspective, weekly therapy, education, care and love, really key, and then the intensive programs. And so they all work in harmony together. We work really closely with international teams, local teams. We're very fluid in terms of handing information to and from. We're able to work with your medical professionals. We're able to work with your school teachers and anyone else who's really involved in supporting your child's development. That really key piece of, what can I do at home? How can I help? We try to make our home programs and our handover programs quite practical, how you can do some of these exercises in front of the television, getting in and out of the bath, getting in and out of the car, areas where as a parent that you can actually do some of these exercises. So that's sometimes it works with our home programs as well. We try to make it really, really fun, and that's the key. Our therapists will dress as dinosaurs and twinkle around as fairies if they need to make your child want to be there, want to do 10 more exercises, and want to be part of the game. It's really important that we teach them social engagement and how much fun that they can have when they're trying. That therapy shouldn't be, there'll be moments where it's hard, but we do make it as fun and as individually fun as we possibly can. And hopefully they also, with the nature of the gym and the way that it's set up, they've got individual rooms and big gyms, they see other kids also having fun and also working hard at the same time. So it does help with them kind of seeing that they're not alone in their journey. Relationships are really important between our therapy teams and families as well. So lots of information, being a deep dive there, but I know for some of you, you may have already put in your patient intake, or you may have already visited us in Sydney or in Melbourne. But some of you might be out there going, how do I become part of this? There is a bit of a process to come and see us, and it is one that we work closely with you if we're missing a piece of the puzzle. But essentially, the most important piece for us is your child's intake paperwork. I know as parents we fill out a vast amount of paperwork, but this is a patient intake that you want to spend some time with. The more information we can get in that space when you're putting in that intake, the really more bespoke and better we can design a therapy program for your child. So once we have that goes into our clinical directors. Our clinical directors are our most senior staff. They will look and talk to other parts of our other departments and understand the information, reports, whatever else you may have supplied, and give us what is an initial therapy recommendation. That's in return to you, so that you've got an idea of what a weekly program, what an intensive program can look like. From there, on our website, there are a number of dates of these 3-week blocks that run through the year. And this is particularly for the intensive programs. Have a look at them and understand your own calendars at home. And that's a really important piece, because we may or may not be able to offer a place straight away, but if we can't, your child will be sitting on a wait list. And the nature of working with children is that wait lists can be fairly fluid. So we may put a call out to you and say, look, you chose the 28th of August, we can now see you. Are you available? So when you're making your date selection, it's really important that you think about, do we have a wedding on? Do we have some travel plans? So that you're not on those particular wait lists. We can sort of bespoke them enough so that people who are on any wait lists are able to come into the system. That is going to be super important from this Thursday, where you can jump online and you'll be able to jump into the first round of applications and registrations for 2023. The sessions that you'll be able to book into are for the sessions that are only running in Brisbane up until the end of this year. We will do another registration round closer towards the end of this year, and it would be alongside the Melbourne and Sydney clinics that will be looking at all 2024 dates. So the dates that we'll have going this year are literally for 2023. So have a look on our website. You'll be able to see all those date options, and then you'll be able to put in your registrations. Now, those registrations are not a booking. They are essentially getting yourself on the list. And we'll be able to then go through and process. And ideally, with the size of the teams, we'll be able to get as many children as possible into each of those sessions through the end of the year. At the same time, we'll be able to register for weekly therapy as well. That will start on or about around the end of August as well. And again, we will be looking at options throughout the day, and ideally, hopefully, we can match as many children in as possible onto the sessions. Our typical day starts at 8 o'clock in the morning and runs through to our last appointment of the day. Will start at 3:30. On some days we have some professional development going on in the afternoons. So there's different availability on different days of the week. From the 13th of February onwards, you'll be able to register for any session moving forward for this year. But what we'll do is I've got this small 4-day window where you can put in the initial to be considered for that initial round of offers that'll go through. So that's kind of the process. So you'll see on our website is that patient intake form. That is going to be the key piece to the puzzle, essentially. The more information you can put on that for us, the better it is, and it gives us a much better guideline of what your child may need. In the process of booking your child in, we will speak to you in depth in terms of what time is best for you. Does your child need a nap? Do they need a gap? Are they better powering through? Do they need a smaller program, etc.? So we can kind of adapt it around. But again, there is a limit to how many children we can take on. In Sydney, we take approximately 30 to 35 children per intensive block. Melbourne sits at about 20 to 25 children per intensive block. And Brisbane will be a little bit smaller to start with. So we'll try and get through as many as we possibly can, but please understand that there is a lot of interest. So there is a chance that your child might be initially on the wait list as well. So what do you want to know? I'm sure there's quite a few questions, and I can see some that have come through the chat. So Paul and I will work together and see what we can answer for you.
All right, guys, thank you for that, Lou. That was a lot of information. Hopefully those of you both who are familiar with NAPA or who are just learning about NAPA found that really, really useful. Okay, so we'll go through as many questions as we possibly can now. I'm going to kick off by firing a couple at you, Lou, that have come through in the chat. Charlene has asked, are programs aimed more at younger children? She's asking because her son is 15.
My daughter is 15, so no, the programs can be tailored to different ages. I guess the typical entry age for kids discovering NAPA might be about 2.5 to 4.5 or so. And that would be where maybe a bulk entry point is, I guess, essentially for our kids. But kids grow up, and so they grow with the program as well. We're certainly, depending on your child's needs, we can adapt any of the programs to what they might need. And we also listen really closely, particularly to 15 and 16-year-olds in terms of their interests and what they want to be in. And say in Sydney, we've got almost 2 clinics running where we have kind of almost an older clinic space, kids space, as well as a really little space, so that we've got kind of the unicorns through to, the kids listening to all the cool music. So we can kind of divide and conquer a little bit around kids' interests, but also they're hanging out. The therapists themselves are pretty young and fun, so which is we find that the older kids connect really well to the therapy team.
Great. Okay, next question. Is Vital Stim available on the opening? And is there any therapists coming from Sydney to Brisbane?
Vital Stim will be available, which is we're really excited about. We're going to have that available in all 3 of our clinics. And hopefully that Vital Stim will be growing in all of our clinics as well. It is certainly an area that we are investing in with our speech pathologists as well as our occupational therapy team, for the staff who are really interested in feeding and as that part of their professional development. There will be therapists from Sydney and hopefully from our Melbourne clinic coming in and out of Brisbane. We do have a core Brisbane team, and the team will be revealed, I suspect, over the next coming months. But we will have visiting therapists coming up from our Sydney group as well. So
yeah, we're gonna save that one and announce them over the coming weeks. But there are definitely 2 permanent Brisbane people coming from the Sydney clinic. We also have a permanent OT coming from one of our American clinics to join NAPA. And then, as Lou said, we've always been very good. You will see some friendly, familiar faces like Ali, like Mei Lee from Melbourne, these and other therapists from our Sydney and Melbourne clinics who will rotate and come up for intensives at a time, or 2 intensives at a time, to help bolster that Brisbane team, so we can see more of the kids up in Queensland as well. Next question. Lou, is it the same therapist for each discipline for the entire intensive, or do they rotate?
The plan with an intensive is ideally it is working with the same therapist for each discipline. So you may have, say, 2 different physiotherapists, an occupational therapist and a speech pathologist, and they might be working on the DMI NeuroSuite, which is a 2-hour program that works with an OT and a physiotherapist typically, and a speech pathologist. Ideally, what happens is we set up a schedule where you're working with the same therapist each day in each of those disciplines at the same time. We caveat that with, obviously sometimes there's illness and there's, travel plans and various bits and pieces, but we do try and mitigate change as much as possible, because establishing trust and relationships with with the kids and the therapist is really, really important. And it's also really important for the therapist, because they've got their goals that they really want to work in with the kids, and they're building their relationship really closely with the kids. So that consistency is something that we really work hard on. While it's not an exact science, it is certainly what we aim for as many programs as we possibly can.
Okay. Do you have to wait until the therapy recommendations come through before registering your interest in an intensive?
Not necessarily. As long as you've got your patient intake in with us, it will be reviewed. There will be a button or thing that you can click on the registration form itself that says therapist recommendations. So as long as you've got your patient intake form in with us, then when we're looking at all the applications and registrations that come in, I will be able to refer into our clinical director and sort of say, look, we've got this little person, they're really interested in coming in October. Where are you at in terms of reviewing things? And then we can hopefully match what we have available with what your child's needs are. It is the first thing we will do, though, if we get a registration in for a date and we don't have a patient intake in, is we won't necessarily start moving the process forward. We will be in contact with you to say, look, we really need your patient intake before we can really consider what's going on here. But if we can see that it's come in, that does help the journey move along a little bit.
Great. This is our last question. So if you've got any other questions, pop them in the chat quickly and we'll get to them. Last question for now is, how do the daily sessions and hours work? Example, is it 3 hours a day? Are there breaks? Is it back to back? How does it work?
Oh, well, it's going to be very different for every single child. So children's needs are going to be very varied. Some will need more OT, some will need more physio, some need more speech, some need all of the above. So it is very bespoke for your child. So you could have a 2-hour program where you want to get it done between 8 and 10 in the morning. We try and make that work. For younger children who've got bigger programs potentially because of more complex needs, we work with you to be able to do maybe an hour or 2 in the morning and an hour or 2 in the afternoon. So we'll really vary around the child's needs, your needs a little bit, because we understand there's other children and other lives and school pickups and drop-offs and that sort of stuff. But really what we do want to do is set up a schedule that sets your child up for success. That they have the rest breaks that they need when they need them. They are worked within a schedule, so it's nuanced within an hour. But it's really important that we understand your child's needs so we can best set them up for success. So no, there's no straight line answer to that. It is very much going to depend on your child. And that may mean that we say, look, we can't fit you into this particular session because of availability and we can't make the times work, but we can get you into another session where we can set up the program a lot better for your child's needs.
And Ian, just to finish off that one, our actual individual sessions are 50 minutes long. So if you are doing a back-to-back schedule, you have 50 minutes and then there's a 10-minute gap where you can quickly grab a drink, have a quick bite to eat, go to the toilet, that sort of stuff before your next session starts. That's the final question I've got on the chat. Is there anyone else that wants to quickly pop something else in the chat? Does anyone else want to pop their video on and show us their face and ask a question directly to me or Lou? This is your last opportunity. Obviously, this is not the last thing, you know, particularly for those of you who are new to NAPA, this is just the start of your journey. If you've got any other questions about your particular circumstances, your child's diagnosis, whether or not we have experience with that diagnosis, etc., what I do recommend is that you reach out to Lou. She's the Director of Client Services. She's been there, done that, spoken to the majority of families across Australia who have been through the NAPA journey so far. So she knows how to get you in, and she knows how we can best accommodate you. She will talk you through anything you need to know about, you know, even if it means externally referring you to additional services, etc. If you have any other questions after this, please, I ask you to reach out to Liz. She will schedule a one-on-one time with you. But what I will say to you, if you do want to register for this initial intake for the Brisbane intensives, which will run between August and December of this year, then you will need to do that from between Thursday and Sunday in order to be considered in that first batch of intensives. All right, I don't think I've had any other questions come through. Does anyone want to put their hand up and ask a question face to face?
Hey Paul, it's Jane here.
Yes. Hello, who's this?
I'm not
Sorry.
Put my camera on. I'm in my pajamas.
That's all right. Who is it? Jane.
It's Jane here.
Hi, Jane.
Hey,
welcome.
Paul.
Ask
Thanks.
away.
I just wondered, with the registration on the 3 days, is it it's not like a first in best dress, is it it's a lottery sort of a system? Yeah, cool.
Yes, correct. So for those of you who have been around NAPA for a while, you'll know that we've toyed with a few different formats for registration over the last few years, and what we did this year for both the Sydney and Melbourne clinics was open a window of registration, such as the 4-day period, which you've got from Thursday to Sunday, and it's a lottery within that. So as long as you get your registration in within that 4-day period, it will then go into a lottery. We've got like this automatic generating thing which muddles people up and spits them out in a certain order. And we will go through and see whether or not so all these people have registered for the August one. We go to number one and we'll go through that. And if we can fit you in, we fit you in. If not, we'll go to your second preference and so on. So, you don't have to be, to answer your question, which you're probably getting at, is you don't have to be online at 10 a.m. on Thursday morning in order to be first in. Is that what you meant?
Okay. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, just have it in by midnight on Sunday.
Yeah.
Is my recommendation.
Got it.
Yeah, and we've found that that's worked well in terms of allowing us to really understand and best make it easier for families, but obviously to get the kids and they're sort of a more calmer system for everyone in that process. Probably the other thing I want to address is NDIS. We accept all NDIS funding methods. It doesn't make any difference to our pricing, but we are accepted under NDIS. And essentially what we do is come into that capacity building or a daily therapy. And so you can choose to use part of your funding, all of your funding. We can work with you in terms of different processes with that, but it doesn't really matter if you're using the NDIA to manage the plan, a plan manager to manage the plan, or you're privately or you're self-funding, or you are privately funding as well, because I know that we've got families coming from New Zealand and Singapore and Hong Kong and India and stuff who will also be privately managing stuff. So we are able to support and I think when you get your therapy recommendations, quite often will go out is a kind of a very general letter of support to say, look, your child's been assessed as being a candidate, and here's a program that you can give over to the NDIS and saying, I'm really interested in having this as part of my child's plan. Once we've met your child, then obviously we will be able to be doing much more detailed reporting. We do suggest, if you haven't seen us before and you've got a local therapist, that if you are coming up to doing a plan review, get them, if they don't provide intensive services, to recommend intensive services as part of their reports as well, because the more that you've got that evidence-based and goal setting, the better sort of it works in terms of talking to the planner of why you want to be part of the intensive, you want your child to be part of the intensive program. But certainly once you've got your patient intake form, we do send a fairly detailed letter, which is generic, but it's very detailed about the program itself that will come back, and hopefully that helps support funding. And then once you're in the program, we can help support ongoing funding and planning.
Any other questions? I know we've gone. Oh no, we're right on time.
Doing well.
Any other questions for you? Last opportunity. As I said, this isn't the end of the road. You can reach out to either myself or to Lou and have a one-on-one conversation in the lead up to registration or the lead up to wherever you are in your journey. Obviously, we will be up for those of you who are. I'm assuming the majority of you are Queenslanders. We will be at the Source Kids Expo. I can't remember the dates off the top of my head. I think it's July. But we will be up there to answer the questions face to face. We'll be up there probably with a couple of our Brisbane therapists as well. So we will be up there if you want to come and say hello. Obviously, once the clinic opens, we will also love to welcome you in there. If you still haven't made up your mind or you still don't know if NAPA is for you, come into the clinic. Have a tour, see what we do, spend some time with us, or by all means, if you're ever in Melbourne or Sydney, stop in and see Lou or see Kylie, who is our clinic manager down in Melbourne. I believe she's online here, but you can have a tour of the Melbourne clinic as well. So please, it's all about you making as informed a decision as you possibly can. So we're all about giving that information to you. Last calls for questions.
I was going to jump in and say, keep a really good eye on our socials. I know socials, you can have a love-hate relationship with them, but they are really good information source, particularly of NAPA. There's the NAPA Centre Australia business page, which will give you not only what's happening in NAPA Australia, but amazing range of activities and therapist tips and information pieces along that way. We also have the private Facebook forum, which is for NAPA Centre Australia parents. And that's where sometimes you can ask some of the more curly questions, information, and you can do a bit of, just stalking on there, because there's a whole pile of information about, what equipment and questions about travel and, can anyone help me type thing. So that's certainly an amazing community to link into, and I really encourage you to be, to link in and be part of that as a really support network for your journey as a parent as well. And then obviously following Instagram and Facebook, because there's a huge amount of just like hot therapy tips really that's placed on there as well. So which are made by our therapists, especially because they want to be able to give back and give information too. So they're a really good one to follow. Also, we suddenly have last minute sessions and other bits of information that comes on, as well as NAPA Connects, where we try and connect and support parents, educate parents. I know we've got the Source, the tube feeding one coming up to, what night's
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night we have a NAPA Nights event tomorrow night, which is all about tube feeding and blended diets. So I believe we've got Sarah, and I think Stacey was also online before. I'm not sure if they're both still here. Sarah, you want to quickly say hello, because you're going to be our wonderful host. Pop your microphone on, Sarah. Don't be shy. I know you're not shy. There you are.
I'm so shy. You know that, Paul. Sorry, it's really hot here. I'm not prepared for this, but yes, can't wait for tomorrow night. Hi, Lou. I haven't met you yet.
I know.
And this is Stacey from Tubey Fun.
Hello.
Stacey.
Hello.
We can't wait for you guys to get to Brisbane. We're
so excited.
Yeah. We've been telling everybody too.
For those of you who may have children who are tube fed or have blended diets, we're having as part of Tubey Awareness Week this week, these wonderful ladies, Sarah and Stacey, will be joined by Melanie Dimmitt, who you may know as the author of the special book, and they're hosting a special session for us tomorrow night at 6:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Saving Time, which for the majority of people online tonight will be 5:30 Brisbane time or 5:30 Queensland time. And it's all about, what are you guys talking about? It's all about tube feeding, blended diets, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah,
we are.
Tips and tricks, anything to help, answer some questions. Yep.
And it's also to celebrate that wonderful magazine which Sarah just held up, which came out yesterday, which is the second edition
amazing is this?
of The Blend.
So
it's
cool.
a beautiful magazine, packed full of information. Oh, there's Sarah's ad. Fantastic. What a plug. All right, get off the camera now. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Stacey. See you tomorrow night.
Thanks. See ya.
Okay, so last thing is Sherelle, I don't know if she's still there, but Sherelle, one of our therapists, has been online, so she's just saying g'day. So she's one of our wonderful OTs who was about to come down and spend about hello Sherelle. She's about to spend about close to 3 months training with us down in Sydney before she heads back up to things. So welcome, Sherelle. Lovely to have you on board. And then Ivy, one of our wonderful NAPA kids, is also online. I'm not sure if she's hung up. Oh, there she is. You want to say hello, Ivy?
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. I just miss you guys.
Oh, we've missed you. You haven't been able to travel to Sydney for a little while because of COVID and the silly COVID, but we can't wait to see you up in NAPA Brisbane, hey?
Yeah.
Do you have anything to say to anyone who's worried, like all the other kids out there? What would you say to the other kids who haven't been to NAPA before?
Well, I mean, they're a really good organisation, and they're for your child. They're really accepted to their needs, and if you want them to dress up as Wednesday Addams or something, they'll do it.
Yeah. Are you still obsessed with Harry Potter, Ivy? Or have you moved on to something else? Is it Wednesday now, is it?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I've got the memo. I'll let the therapist know, okay? Thanks, Ivy. Okay. Let me just see if I've got a couple. Oh, thank you, Sarah. Sarah mentioned that this Brisbane Source Kids Expo is the 30th and the 31st of July. So we will be up there, as will Sarah and Stacey. So looking forward to seeing you there. Ivy said hello. Charlene said thank you for an informative session. Thank you, Charlene. Laura said thank you for putting it on. Adam says Paige would like a day trip with her therapist to Movie World. I don't know if we'll make that happen. I don't know. We'll have to workshop that one. Adam, thanks, Adam. That sounds like more of a Jess question to me, actually. And Callan, Nadia just said Callan had his first day of an intensive and he is exhausted. And thank you. All right, that's a lovely way to leave it. We've got no other questions. Thank you to everyone who is still online. As I said, reach out if you want further information. Intensive registration this Thursday, 10 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Saving Time, which for Queenslanders will be 9 a.m. So don't forget that. It's not that important that you get your registration in right on that time, but just get it in by midnight on Sunday. All right, and then you'll be considered in the first round of intensive. If you've got any other questions, please reach out to us. Otherwise, you'll find a whole heap of information on our website as well. Make sure you're on the Australian website, www.napacentre.com.au. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. I do understand that there was the first dinner party on maths tonight, so we have tapped into that one. Hopefully you recorded it, but this is a very, very important conversation for us to have, probably more important than the conversations that happened over that dinner party, and we look forward to all of you being part of our NAPA family into the future. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Love you.
Bye.
See you guys. See you tomorrow.